Eliminating Stress, Module 3A, Principles. 3 Principles-Based Presentation. Copyright David Philip Promka, 2024. A large portion of this course will be discussing 3 principles. In this module, we'll be talking about what principles are and the value they bring. Scientists employ something known as the scientific method as research is performed to make sure researchers come up with valid conclusions. We'll take a short look at how that works. Many people don't understand that learning can take place in a number of dimensions, so we'll take a look at how that works also. We'll take a look at the role insight plays in advancing understanding, and we'll start becoming familiar with the 3 principles involved with producing our experience in life. This course will present material that may be new and possibly contrary to your current understanding. So the point here is to remind you that the sciences make advancements. What is understood to be the facts can change. Everyone wants to have a happy life. We wouldn't have engaged in so many of life's struggles with the intention of making things worse, would we? Still, so many people have a hard time finding joy, happiness, and peace of mind. They might say that living a happy life is impractical. We'll see that living in peace and happiness tends to work out better than living in mental strain. The point of this course is to make it clear that happiness and peace of mind are innate and await our arrival every moment of our lives. In addition, dwelling in happiness is a simple and straightforward matter, not dependent upon our intelligence, our achievements, nor anything that has happened in our past. Still, many can authentically state that the world seems to have many problems that have yet to be solved. Problems of any kind, including stress, are extremely difficult or unsolvable when our understanding is not up to the task at hand. When that happens, we find issue management or trial and error techniques being invoked. Stress management is like putting a bucket under a leaky sink. It hasn't really fixed the problem. As sciences advance, they typically and routinely get stumped. Before Sir Isaac Newton and Gottfried Leibniz invented calculus, the solution to some mathematics or engineering problems were either terribly complex or impossible. It's just a characteristic of scientific investigation that we don't understand the answers to new questions. Otherwise, scientists would just say, yeah, we know that. It's on page 238 of the manual. Here's a simple math example illustrating the benefits of deeper understanding. Given 64 linear feet of boards, what's the maximum area that a 4-sided rectangular enclosure made of those boards can contain? So if you understand calculus, the solution is easy. If not, solving the problem becomes trial and error. That is, if you haven't already dropped the course. The presence of apparent complexity, trial and error, and problem management techniques are an indication that people don't really know what to do to solve the problem. They may be doing the best they can, but there's more to understand. Today's understanding of mental health and general happiness is equivalent to the pre-Newtonian era of physics and mathematics. The remarkable news is that our understanding has jumped time. Marvelous discoveries akin to those made by Newton, Einstein, Heisenberg, and others in the realm of physics and mathematics have been made in the area of our experience and enjoyment of life. When comprehended by professionals and the general public, a radical positive shift in mental health, happiness, and the state of the world can be anticipated. How is this accomplished? Scientific method. When investigations into some area of life begin, those who perform the research are just as lost as you or I would be. As research proceeds, there are usually a number of theories, sometimes known as scientific wild-ass guesses, proposed about how objects or subjects under study in that area behave or are related. Over time, theories are weeded out. They run into dead ends, inconsistencies, exceptions, and so on. What seemed like a really good idea at the time just doesn't work. And so researchers moan, oh crap, and smack themselves on the foreheads. It seemed like such a very good theory at the time. They shrug their shoulders and start over. Okay, maybe after going to the bar and commiserating with each other, then they go back and start anew. There can be a lot of head scratching and mumbling. To their great credit, researchers employ a guide called the scientific method. This is used to evaluate their work so that theories can be validated or discarded, and at some point arrive at clear-cut principles that describe how things work. To be sure research being performed is on the right track, the scientific method requires that observations, tests, and experiments must be relevant, objective, repeatable, and verifiable. Theories are rejected or refined until researchers arrive at bulletproof explanation or description, which then becomes known as a principle. The real test of bulletproofness comes when findings are presented to fellow professionals in their community. Fellow professionals often contribute to the enthusiastic presentation of new findings by viciously assailing, picking apart, and/or refusing to believe that which has been presented. Einstein refused to believe that the universe was expanding until presented with irrefutable evidence by Hubble. So it's not just you who gets bothered. Heisenberg presented his uncertainty principle, which confused many, but eventually resulted in a wave of solid understanding. In the end, all the challenges and criticisms provide a real trial by fire that serves to certify principles or findings presented as legitimate. Now we'll be looking at some principles regarding our experience of life, and you will be doing the certification. You know, when Einstein first proposed his theory of relativity, many scientists couldn't get it. Because they couldn't get it, they rejected it. It took some time for them to do the mental preparation that got them to the point where it made sense. Understanding advances. Some people lead the way, others catch up in time. In a similar manner, we'll go through some prep work that will help make getting the point easier. Learning principles here will go better if you can unfocus mentally and relax. Unfocusing while listening brings with it a beautiful sense of interest and wonder as we proceed. Relaxing about the learning process and getting comfortable with not understanding will make space for significant new understanding to arrive and fall in place. We will look at a number of specific examples and then experience a moment of insight that accompanies a mental leap that shows us a bigger picture. Focusing consumes energy and narrows down our view, making it hard to see and understand more than one item or case. The picture here illustrates the narrow mental breadth brought on by focusing on individual math problems. We first learn example 1, then later move over to see the next example, and so forth. This mentally moving about to understand one example, then another, can make for a busy mind. Memorization can tire one out as well. Discovering there are an endless possible number of addition problems can be very discouraging. How can we possibly learn all of them? Something more profound must happen. We need a shortcut or something. We get one in the form of a principle. The more things, cases, or objects a single principle can describe without error or exception, the more profound, powerful, and useful that principle is. For example, the principle of addition applies to all numbers. That's very powerful and helpful to all of us. If it only applied to a few numbers, it would be of limited use. During research, A pattern may be detected, the further investigation of which allows us to make a general and comprehensive statement that provides us with greater mastery. Holding on exclusively to what we know strongly limits the chance of acquiring new information. Relaxing, being curious, being interested, and so on, which is being represented by the dashed circle, provides the opportunity to learn something new. Okay, so what's a principle? They are case-independent descriptions of the behavior or relationships of objects or subjects within some field of study. Okay, that's a mouthful. Let me say it another way. A principle is a method or an understanding that works every time in the area where it is being used. As we learn addition by going through some number of examples, we experience a moment of insight where we understand that it will work for any pair of numbers. The power of learning principles brings us mastery in some area of life without having to study and validate every case. Most people do understand that when they learn a principle, they learn more. Fewer people also see that a qualitative improvement in understanding as attained by grasping what a principle conveys also occurs. This qualitative improvement is catalyzed by insight and delineated by an improvement in inspiration and general happiness. For example, it's what happens to us when we get how the principle of addition works. We always feel better when we get it. And the process of getting it is an important moment of pause, wonder, and inspiration as we leave what we previously knew and are lifted to a higher perspective. As we progress in our learning, we begin to suspect that there's some kind of pattern here. Then there comes a moment of pause and wonder where our thinking stops, perhaps for only a moment. We stop focusing and begin to see something new, more profound, and we become inspired. Hey, I see it. It all fits a pattern. I get it. Wow. In a moment of pause and wonder and inspiration, we leave what we previously knew and are lifted to a higher mental perspective. That moment of pause is the catalyst needed to produce insights. As long as we cling to what we already know, our spirits will remain stuck at the feeling level, which corresponds to our level of understanding or knowledge. However, if we release our mental grip on what we already know, we'll recover the energy that was being consumed by our gripping. When that energy is freed up, our feelings improve and our mental perspective rises. As this happens, new vistas previously unseen become revealed to us. Our mental field of vision expands. Now we see it all. We see the examples we were learning are all different forms of the same principle. We understand the pattern and can use it as needed without a lot of mental overhead. As a result, understanding a principle eliminates a lot of doubt, worry, and mental fatigue. So in mathematics, because we understand how the principle of addition works, we know we can add any two numbers when the occasion arises without having to routinely practice or to have previously tackled those problems. We can never forget how addition works. So learning a principle produces a permanent positive change in our understanding. Since the principles to be presented discuss our experience of life, you can expect a permanently more enjoyable life as your understanding grows.